Sean Salisbury, Sports Talk 790 in Houston, their morning drive host, former NFL quarterback. I was going to have you on to talk about the DeAndre Hopkins deal, but let me ask you about Tom Brady. What do you think happened here?
You know what, Dan? And we don't have any sports to talk about, do we? Good gracious. You know what, Dan? I think that it got down to, if you're Brady, you're waiting to walk into Bill's office and have him make you an offer, meaning what kind of players are you going to supply me? What are our chances to continue the Super Bowl type of run? And what are you going to pay me? And I heard you. He's one of the very few, unlike the guy here, Bill O'Brien, who makes decisions not on emotions, but what he thinks. And every time, whether it's Lawyer, Malloy, and even Brady's not immune to it, Malloy, Ty Law, Richard Seymour, all those guys, when he thinks that, okay, your time's about up no matter who you are. I think Tom wanted an offer that he couldn't refuse, and I think Bill, at this point in time, without emotion being involved, wanted to move on and made him an offer he could refuse, and that's why Brady today made the announcement. I think he was waiting for them to grasp him and hug him, and I don't think so. And I think Bill, when he goes up with his press conference, is going to do what he does. This is it is. Tom did good. We'll move on, and you won't see 1 ounce of emotion in it. Honest to God, 19 years later, it's shocking. Yeah. It's going to be weird, but if it happens to Rice and Joe Montana, it can happen to Tom Brady.
Where do you think he'll end up?
Dan, for me, and I know the best situation, really, if you're the Colts, let me just throw this out there. And I know Frank Reich and Phillip Rivers and they're how they've been together. But if you're the Colts and you love Phillip Rivers, why wouldn't you love Tom Brady? You got wide receivers, you got weapons, you got an offensive line where Tom doesn't have to. His offensive line will let him sit his feet in the pocket and deliver. Mechanically, the best guy we've ever had at quarterback. They can run the ball efficiently. Good play caller, good front office, got money, went and got themselves some help up front, so they're stout on the defensive line. Still got some draft picks and collateral. They got money to pay Tom Brady. If you love Phillip Rivers and you want a veteran, why wouldn't you at least entertain the offer or the opportunity of Tom Brady? He's better than Phillip Rivers. And then, well, there's Bruce Arians, who'd be fun to work with, but they're not Super Bowl ready, although he'd have weapons. The Chargers, you still got to deal with Mahomes. The Raiders, John Gruden falls. Heck, John Gruden loved me 1 second and wants Brady the next. He falls in and out of love with quarterbacks, so maybe Brady. And then I am still not, just for the hell of it, I'm still not ruling out that the San Francisco 49ers trades doing it, weapons with that trade, getting another first-round draft pick. I got to believe they're at least going to talk to Tom, even though it's probably crazy. But the best situation for him as it stands, there's no questions the Indianapolis Colts. The question is, how interested are they in him?
Yeah, I wondered about that you play half your game indoors. You got a good offensive line. You like the coach. He's a former quarterback, and you've got some weapons there. Your defense is pretty good. I get that, and you're right. If you're gonna take a flyer on Phillip Rivers, then why not at least do a drive-by on Tom Brady? The Chargers part of this, I understand with the weapons there, and maybe that's the lifestyle part of this that he's mentioned in his tweet. Tampa Bay, I think Tampa Bay is sneaky good, but I just don't know, because we don't know what the Falcons are. Carolina's in a rebuild. You're still going to have to deal with the Saints there, but Tampa could be a playoff team with the right quarterback there, and you got a lot of weapons there. But you start to troubleshoot this for Brady, and it feels like the Chargers make the most sense for everything that he's talking about, reading between the lines. And that,
right, and and the production company, all those things to move west closer to where he grew up, even though it was Northern California. And Dan, you make a good mention about Tampa with those weapons. And Bruce Arians is great, not just good, great with quarterbacks. And part of Tom's criteria is to work with a coach, and I don't know if this was a dig, that he could actually work with at this point in time. And Bruce would love it. Supposedly they and the Chargers have already made $30 million kind of offers to Tom Brady. But it would seem logical to go west. And the Chargers, and the one thing that does Tom think that he can get through Kansas City and Mahomes, they do have weapons. Hunter Henry, if he's healthy. They got some players, Keenan Allen. The question is, will they shore that offensive line up so he can set his feet? So all of them have a strength, but there's also weaknesses. But what's Brady always done, Dan? He's always taken the weakness and made it better. And the question is, in Tampa or Los Angeles with the Chargers, can he? He'll have options. I think they're more limited than he thought, but Tom Brady's going to make an impact. I cannot believe we're sitting here talking about today that Tom Brady is going to be playing somewhere else. It's absolutely it's baffling to me. But you know what? Now New England's got to go on the hunt. Wouldn't it be funny if Jimmy Garoppolo ended up back there for a second-round pick?
Yeah, I just don't see that happening. And
It's
maybe
not going to happen.
It's not going to happen. I thought Andy Dalton all along was sort of a safeguard. And if you got Teddy Bridgewater, great. If I just don't know enough about Jarrett Stidham other than what I saw when he was in college. But then most guys who are in the NFL look pretty good in college. We're talking to Sean Salisbury, Sports Talk 790, Houston Morning Drive host, and, of course, former NFL quarterback. The DeAndre Hopkins deal to Arizona, how's this playing locally?
Horrible, Dan. It is. I've tried since Bill's been here. I know how hard it is for those guys to coach, and it's difficult. I've tried to I don't want to say champion his cause, but defend him a little bit. Dan, I cannot. You could give me $1 million today. I can't defend this trade. When I heard about this yesterday, my head, first of all, exploded. Fortunately, I got it back before I came on with you. But they made what you're doing is, how do you stand up in front of your team and say we got better? You've got a superstar quarterback who's a sacred cow. You made him worse. You didn't improve any weakness. David Johnson is a guy, and you traded that guy who is the best football player consistently on the Texans, and that's including Watson right now, is DeAndre Hopkins, Hall of Famer. You don't have a number one receiver. You have two of those guys that are two of the three receivers in Stills and Will Fuller that spend a lot of time watching from the sidelines. Potential for Will Fuller, yes, but doesn't play a full season. And you got rid of your best football player, and you got a fourth, a second, and you got an aging running back. It's not David Johnson's fault, but he's a guy. Dan, think about this. If you woke up this morning and I told you Michael Thomas and the Saints traded Michael Thomas and a fourth-round pick to the Texans for Duke Johnson and a second-round pick, and they threw in a fourth-rounder, what would you do? You think you'd call in the National Guard, right? Those are the two best receivers in the league. That's what this is. Yeah. You lost respect to players. You cut off you basically cut the knees off of a franchise, and he's already been one of those guys that people have not liked here. I think Bill O'Brien, the respect factor, he's not going to be able to stand in front of that team and tell them they got better. He can't handle a really, really good player that's opposition that maybe doesn't get along with. You mentioned emotion. Bill Belichick doesn't act on emotion. Bill O'Brien does, yet he doesn't want his players to. Bill O'Brien lost a lot of respect, I think, in that locker room yesterday. This is as bad a trade as this city's ever seen football-wise.
Yeah, I saw this on Bleacher Report. Mike Tanier writes the Texans have to address Bill O'Brien's situation. Bill O'Brien is a staggeringly terrible general manager. He's also an awful head coach, as illustrated by many of his suspect decisions in the Texans blowing a 24-point lead to lose to the Chiefs in the AFC divisional round. Despite his shortcomings as a game planner, play caller, O'Brien has a 52-44 head coaching record and has led the Texans to the playoffs 4 times in 6 years. But I don't know what the rationale is. Will he hold a press conference and talk about this?
No, it'll be a while, Dan. He'll let it clear, and if he does, it'll be. I said I'm not going to discuss a guy's personal or my relationship with DeAndre Hopkins or what. He'll go through that. Here's the thing, Dan. Normally, when you run these things you run them by an owner. With Cal McNair, who's to blame on this also. Bill's got so much power in this organization. He walked up those steps, in my opinion, and what's done, and said, here's what we're doing, not do you approve of this trade. See, what Bill O'Brien, the coach, should have done is punch the general manager right in the face. The problem is he'd have to do it in the mirror because it's the same guy. And so imagine this, Dan, if Bill was a coach somewhere else where he didn't have power, and he was told that this trade was going down, wouldn't he walk into the general manager and owner's office and say, what are you doing? So, yes, while he's won games, Dan, when you got a quarterback like Watson, it's not just to get to the playoffs. It's to get deep and to be able to play in February. He's lost a lot of respect, and he's been questioned as a play caller and a coach. He's got too much power, and unfortunately, power, ego, and narcissistic attitudes ruin relationships, ruin businesses, and ruin football teams. He is the most despised man in this town right now.
Let me ask you about the Cowboys situation with Dak Prescott. Amari Cooper got paid, Zeke Elliott got paid. There are a lot of guys who got paid, and Dak Prescott is sitting there going, wait a minute here. I know he's getting fair market value. In fact, I think what he's being offered is fair to his talent level, that he's not Russell Wilson. He's not the Super Bowl winning quarterback, but he's going to make more than Jared Goff is or Carson Wentz. that seems to be fair market value. So where do you stand on the Cowboys with Dak Prescott?
You know, Dan, and I've said it on your show, I think, when I said I felt last year, I felt he was underappreciated or underrated. And I think that he needed to put up numbers to prove to people he wasn't just a guy who threw it 24 times and had to have a great running game for him to succeed statistically. Well, he did. Now the next level is him for him to win and to carry teams when, okay, you know, when the running back's out or the wide receiver's a little banged up or the defense. I'm with you. The offer they made seems, at least on the surface, appears to me, seems to be pretty good. But you know what, Dan? He's at a position that's obviously premium. He isn't going anywhere. You put the franchise tag on him, and think what the salary cap with the CBA is going to happen. It's going to go up. He's going to make $35 million, Dan. Yeah. He just is. Now, are people going to say he's overpaid? Probably. But that's what we do. Listen, did you look at the Titans and what they paid Tannehill? The $20 million is not the norm anymore. 28 to 30 million is. So I'm with you on the value, but he's looking at it saying, what's your option, dude? What is your option, Jerry? He will eventually get paid, and it'll be a lot. And for a minute, he'll be the highest paid quarterback in NFL history until the Mahomes or until Watson comes around. But I agree with you. But you know what, Dan? You're worth what you can negotiate, and the Cowboys are not going to let him go. He will be the starting quarterback for the Cowboys, and he will get paid, whether it's this year or when the franchise tag is done. He's going to be making close to $35 million or more over the course of a contract, and a lot of it's going to be guaranteed.
Great to talk to you, bud. Thanks for joining us, Sean.
Always great to be on with you, brother. Thank you. Enjoy.
That's Sean Salisbury, Morning Drive host on Sports Talk 790.